Honey, sit down and let me tell you something. You want to know how to get revenge with $300,000? We were best friends for 30 years. I was married to my husband for 17 years. And the night before the luxury wedding that I paid every penny for, when I opened that hotel room door, I saw them. My best friend of 30 years and my husband of 17 years, on the same bed that I had reserved. You know what I did? No, I didn't scream. No, I didn't cry. I just calmly smiled and said, "The wedding will go on tomorrow." Because I realize the best revenge happens in front of 400 guests. Now sit tight and wait until you hear how I turned that wedding into their personal hell. My name is Eve, and I'm 57 years old now. And sweetheart, people always say that money can't buy happiness. They're absolutely right. But let me tell you what $300,000 can buy. Front row seats to the most spectacular betrayal of your entire life. Sarah and I met when we were 7 years old. Can you even imagine? 7. We were in Mrs. Patterson's second grade class, and she sat right next to me with her little blonde pigtails and missing front tooth. We became inseparable from that very first day. Sleepovers every single weekend. Shared secrets whispered under blankets. Braided friendship bracelets that we swore we'd never take off. The whole beautiful deal. She was there holding my hand when my mother died of cancer. I was there holding hers when her father walked out and never came back. We were sisters in everything but blood, honey. Everything but blood. Life took us on different paths, of course. That's what happens when you grow up. I married Marcus when I was 28. He was so handsome back then, successful. A real estate developer with big dreams and an even bigger smile that could light up any room. We built what everyone called a beautiful life together. 3-story house in the best suburbs, luxury cars that gleamed in the driveway, yearly vacations to Europe where we'd drink wine and pretend we were sophisticates. From the outside, we looked perfect. Sarah, on the other hand, she struggled. She bounced from job to job like a pinball, relationship to relationship, never quite finding her footing in this world. But I never judged her for it. How could I? She was my person, my sister, my other half. I helped her whenever she needed it, without hesitation. Money for rent when she came up short at the end of the month. A loan for her car when hers finally died on the highway. Connections for job interviews through Marcus's business network. Marcus would sometimes give me that look. You know the one I mean. That look that said, maybe I was being too generous. Maybe I was being taken advantage of. But I'd just smile and say, "She's family, Marcus." And he'd nod slowly and go back to his newspaper, and I thought that was the end of it. I thought he understood. I was so stupid. Then, about 2 years ago, Sarah met Derek. Finally, after all those failed relationships and broken hearts, she'd found someone who seemed stable. He was a corporate lawyer, well-dressed, polite, maybe a little boring if I'm being completely honest with you, but solid, dependable. Sarah was over the moon about him. After 6 months of dating, he proposed to her at this fancy restaurant, and she called me immediately, crying with pure joy. Eve, I can't believe it! I'm getting married!" I remember exactly where I was when I got that call. Standing in my kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, and suddenly I was crying too, tears of happiness streaming down my face. I was so genuinely happy for her, honey. After everything she'd been through, every heartbreak and disappointment, she finally deserved this happiness. We met for lunch the very next week to talk about wedding plans. Sarah brought this huge binder full of magazine clippings and Pinterest boards, her eyes shining with excitement. But then I watched her face fall as she started looking at venue prices and catering costs, the reality of it all sinking in. The light just went out of her eyes. I don't know how we're going to afford the wedding I've always dreamed of, she said so quietly, stirring her salad without actually eating any of it, just moving the lettuce around and around. And right there, without even thinking twice about it, without considering the consequences, I reached across the table and took her hand. "Let me help you," I said. She looked up at me with those big eyes, the same eyes that had cried on my shoulder so many times. "Eve, I couldn't possibly." "You're my best friend," I interrupted her, squeezing her hand. "You've been there for me through absolutely everything. My mother's death, my father's drink. Every bad day I've ever had. Please, Sarah, let me do this for you. Let me give you your dream wedding." She cried right there in that restaurant, honey. Happy tears, I thought at the time. Grateful tears from a best friend who couldn't believe her luck. Now I know they were probably tears of guilt. But back then, I just held her hand and felt like I was doing something beautiful. Marcus wasn't thrilled when I told him that evening. That's putting it mildly, actually. $300,000, Eve, for someone else's wedding? He stood in our living room, his face turning red, his voice rising with each word. "She's not just someone else, Marcus. She's Sarah. She's family." He sighed, that long-suffering sigh that I'd grown so used to over the years. "Fine. But this is it, Eve. After this, she needs to figure out her own life. No more bailouts." Of course, I agreed quickly, relieved that he wasn't going to fight me on it. "Of course, honey. This is the last time, Ott." I meant it too. This was going to be my final grand gesture, the ultimate expression of our 30-year friendship. After this, Sarah would be married, settled with a good man, and finally on her own path toward happiness. After this, everything would be different. I had no idea how right I was. The planning began immediately, and oh honey, it consumed everything. Sarah wanted everything to be absolutely perfect, and I made damn sure she got it. Designer wedding dress from Milan, custom made by some fancy designer whose name I can't even pronounce. $12,000 for a dress she'd wear once. Destination wedding venue at this historic mansion with manicured gardens and an actual ballroom. $80,000 just for the venue rental for one day. Flowers shipped all the way from Ecuador because apparently local flowers weren't good enough. $25,000 for roses and orchids and things I'd never even heard of. A live orchestra with 20 musicians, $40,000 to play music. The cake, honey, the cake was $3,000. $3,000 for flour and sugar and frosting. Can you even imagine? But I didn't complain, not once. Every single time, Sarah squealed with excitement over another detail. Every time she hugged me tight and whispered, "I can't believe you're doing this for me." I felt like every penny was worth it. I felt like I was being the best friend anyone could ever ask for. I felt like I was doing something truly good in this world. Marcus became more and more distant during those months of planning. He was traveling constantly for work, or at least that's what he told me. Late nights at the office, reviewing contracts. Weekend trips to check on properties in other cities. I chalked it up to stress, you know? Real estate development is demanding, and maybe he was working extra hard to make up for the money we were spending on Sarah's wedding. I trusted him completely. Stupid, trusting Eve. Blind, foolish Eve. Sarah and Marcus actually became friendlier during this time, which I thought was wonderful. He'd stop by our house when she was there, going over wedding plans, offering suggestions about venues or catering. He'd make jokes that made us both laugh, pour us wine while we looked at seating charts. I thought it was so sweet that they were finally getting along after all these years of him thinking I was too generous with her. I thought he was making an effort because he saw how much this wedding meant to me. I thought a lot of stupid things. God, honey, I was so completely blind. All the signs were there, and I didn't see a single one. Or maybe I didn't want to see them. The wedding was planned for a Saturday evening in June. Perfect weather, perfect timing, everything aligned like the stars were blessing this union. The guest list had somehow ballooned to 400 people. Sarah's family, Derek's family, old friends from college, work colleagues, even some people I'd never heard of in my entire life. But fine, I thought. Go big or go home, right? This was Sarah's day, her dream day, the day I paid for. I arrived at the hotel on Friday afternoon with Marcus. The wedding ceremony was at the historic mansion nearby, but the bridal party and close family were all staying at this absolutely gorgeous luxury hotel for the weekend. I'd booked an entire floor, spared no expense. Sarah had the massive bridal suite with its own living room and marble bathroom. Derek had a room with his groomsmen where they could drink whiskey and pretend to be nervous. I had a lovely corner room with Marcus, and several other rooms were reserved for close family members. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready. Everything was about to fall apart. The rehearsal dinner was Friday night at this upscale Italian restaurant with chandeliers and white tablecloths. It was beautiful, intimate, about 50 of the closest people in Sarah and Derek's lives. Sarah looked absolutely radiant in this cream-colored dress that hugged her figure. Derek couldn't stop smiling at her, couldn't stop touching her hand, her shoulder, like he needed to keep making sure she was real. I sat next to Marcus, holding his hand under the table, feeling so proud that we'd made this possible for our dear friend, feeling like everything was right in the world. Sarah stood up to give a speech near the end of dinner, and honey, I still remember her exact words. They're burned into my brain forever. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, but especially I want to thank my best friend Eve. She looked right at me, her eyes glistening with tears. Eve, you've been my rock, my sister, my everything since we were 7 years old. I literally wouldn't be here without you. This wedding wouldn't be happening without your incredible generosity. I love you so, so much. Everyone applauded warmly. I felt tears streaming down my own face, tears of joy and love. Marcus squeezed my hand tightly. Sarah came over to our table and hugged me, leaning down to whisper directly in my ear, "Thank you for everything, Eve. Everything." If only I'd known what everything really meant in that moment. If only I'd heard the guilt hidden in those words. If only. The dinner ended around 11. Everyone was tired and happy, full of good food and wine, ready to rest up for the big day tomorrow. Marcus and I walked back to our hotel room through the quiet corridors. He said he was exhausted and went straight to bed, not even bothering to change out of his suit properly. I stayed up a little longer, sitting at the desk with my laptop, checking some last-minute emails, making absolutely sure all the details were perfect for tomorrow. The flowers would arrive at dawn. The musicians would be there by 3. The photographer knew exactly where to be and when. Everything was organized. Everything was planned. Everything was under control. Around midnight, I realized I'd left my phone charger in Sarah's bridal suite earlier in the evening when we'd been getting ready for the rehearsal dinner. My phone was almost dead, and I absolutely needed it for tomorrow. I was essentially acting as the unofficial wedding coordinator, the one making sure everything ran smoothly. I threw on a robe over my nightgown and walked quietly down the hallway to Sarah's suite. The hotel was so quiet at this hour, most guests already asleep, dreaming of the beautiful wedding tomorrow. I knocked softly on Sarah's door, but there was no answer. I tried the door handle, unlocked. Sarah had always been careless about things like that ever since we were kids. Never locked her diary, never locked her doors. I stepped inside the dark suite, looking around carefully. "Sarah?" I called out softly, not wanting to wake her if she was sleeping. No answer. The main room was completely empty, the remnants of her getting ready session scattered around. Makeup bags, shoes, that beautiful cream dress hanging on the closet door for tomorrow. I saw my charger on the side table and grabbed it, ready to leave. But then I heard something, a sound coming from one of the other rooms in the suite. My heart started beating faster. Honey, that instinct that something wasn't right. Was someone in there? Was Sarah okay? Was she safe? I walked toward the bedroom, and that's when I heard it more clearly. Not distress, not danger, something else entirely. Sounds that I recognized all too well after 17 years of marriage. Intimate sounds, breathless sounds, and then I heard his voice, clear as day, Marcus's voice, saying her name like a prayer. Sarah. I don't remember opening that bedroom door. I don't remember my hand, but suddenly I was standing in the doorway of that bedroom, my phone charger still clutched in my hand, and there they were, my husband of 17 years, my best friend of 30 years, in bed together, naked, tangled in sheets I could tell were expensive, in a room I had paid for. They didn't see me at first, honey. They were too occupied, too lost in each other, too consumed by whatever this was between them. I stood there in that doorway, I don't know for how long. Seconds? Minutes? Time stopped existing. I watched my entire life, everything I believed in, everything I trusted, implode in real time. Every memory I had with Sarah suddenly became a lie. Every moment with Marcus suddenly became a question mark. 30 years of friendship. Was any of it real? 17 years of marriage. Did he ever truly love me? Finally, Sarah turned her head and saw me standing there. Her eyes went wide with absolute horror. She gasped, scrambling away from Marcus. He turned to look, and honey, the color just drained completely from his face. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe he had. Maybe the woman he married, the woman he made vows to, had been a ghost to him for a long time. "Eve," he started, his voice hoarse. I held up my hand, and my voice, when it came out, was so eerily calm it scared even me. "Don't." Just that one word. Don't. Don't speak. Don't explain. Don't you dare try to make this better. Sarah scrambled to cover herself with the sheet, her perfect hair a mess, her makeup smeared. "Eve, please, let me explain." "How long?" I asked it so quietly, but the question filled the entire room. They looked at each other in that moment, and honey, that look told me absolutely everything I needed to know. That look of two people who shared secrets, who had a history, who knew each other intimately. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a moment of drunken weakness. This was something that had been going on. Something with depth and history. "How long?" I repeated, my voice harder now, cracking at the edges. Marcus sat up, reaching desperately for his clothes, scattered on the floor. "Eve, I'm so sorry. It just happened. We didn't mean—" "How long?" I screamed at this time, and the calm shattered into a million pieces, each one cutting me as it fell. Sarah was crying now, mascara streaming down her face in black rivers. "6 months," she whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. But I did hear it. 6 months. Half a year. While I was planning her wedding, choosing her flowers, tasting her cakes. While I was writing check after check after check. While I was calling her my best friend, my sister, my everything. She was sleeping with my husband. The room started spinning around me. I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself, my knuckles turning white from gripping so hard. 6 months of lies. 6 months of betrayal. 6 months of them laughing at stupid. Trusting Eve. "Get out," Sarah said suddenly to Marcus, her voice shaking but firm. "What?" He looked confused, like he couldn't believe she was dismissing him. "Get out! Go back to your room! Just let me talk to her, please!" Marcus looked at me, opened his mouth to say something. What? What could he possibly say? Then thought better of it. He grabbed his clothes in a messy bundle and left, not even looking at me as he passed by, like he couldn't bear to see the devastation on my face. The door clicked shut behind him. Sarah and I stood there in that bedroom, in that silence that was so heavy it felt like drowning. She was still wrapped in the sheet, mascara and tears making a mess of her face. I was still in my robe, holding a phone charger, my whole world crumbling around me, like a building collapsing floor by floor. "I never meant for this to happen," she started, her voice breaking. "Eve, you have to believe me. We tried to fight it. We really did." "You tried to fight it?" I laughed, but it came out broken and twisted, nothing like a real laugh. "While I was writing checks for your wedding? While I was paying for your dream venue and your dream dress and your dream everything? You were sleeping with my husband and trying to fight it? I love him, Eve." She said it so quietly, but those 4 words hit me like a freight train going full speed. I'm so sorry, but I love him. We fell in love. We didn't want to, but we did. You love him. I repeated it slowly, tasting the betrayal on every syllable. And what about Derek? Does he know you love someone else? Does he know that the night before he marries you, the night before he commits his entire life to you, you're in bed with another woman's husband? She didn't answer, just kept crying, like her tears could wash away what she'd done. And what about me? My voice cracked completely now, all the pain spilling out. Did you ever love me, Sarah? Or was I just your personal ATM? Your safety net? The stupid friend who'd always be there to pay your bills and fix your problems while you took whatever else you wanted from my life? Of course I love you. You're my best friend. Best friends don't do this. I screamed it so loud, I'm surprised the entire hotel didn't wake up. Best friends don't destroy each other. Best friends don't take everything you give them and then take your husband too. Best friends don't lie for 6 months. Best friends don't. I couldn't finish. I was crying now, really crying, my whole body shaking with sobs. I turned to leave that room, to run away, to escape this nightmare. But then I stopped. Something inside me shifted. A strange, cold calm settled over me, like ice water in my veins. My hands stopped shaking. My mind became crystal clear. The crying stopped. I turned back to look at Sarah, still wrapped in that sheet, still crying her crocodile tears. The wedding is still on, I said calmly. She looked confused, fear flickering in her eyes. What? Tomorrow, everything proceeds exactly as planned. You're going to put on that $12,000 dress I bought you. You're going to walk down that aisle covered in $25,000 worth of imported flowers. You're going to smile for the photographer I hired and cut into that $3,000 cake. Eve, I don't understand. Because I've already paid for it all, I said softly. But there was steel in my voice now. Every single penny. And honey, I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to get everything I paid for. A chill of fear crossed her face. What are you going to do? I smiled, Ben. But it wasn't a nice smile. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just figured out exactly how to burn everything down. You'll see tomorrow, sweetheart. You'll see. I left her room and walked back to mine in a daze. My mind racing at 1,000 miles an hour. Marcus was sitting on the bed, head in his hands, the picture of guilt and regret. He looked up when I came in, his eyes red. Eve, please, can we talk about this? Pack your things, I said quietly, my voice flat and emotionless. Get a different room. I don't want to see you right now. I don't want to smell you. I don't want to hear you breathe. Eve, there's nothing to talk about. Not tonight. You're going to get another room. And tomorrow you're going to show up at that wedding like everything is perfectly fine. Do you understand me? He looked scared. Actually scared of me. Good. He should be. What are you going to do? He asked, and I could hear the fear in his voice. I smiled, that same cold smile I'd given Sarah. You'll see. You'll both see. He packed a bag with shaking hands and left. I sat on that bed in complete silence, honey. But inside my mind was anything but silent. $300,000. 17 all destroyed in one night. All thrown away for secret meetings and stolen moments and lies upon lies upon lies. But they wanted their happy ending? Oh, honey, I'd give them an ending they'd never forget. I didn't sleep at all that night. Not one single minute. Instead, I sat at the desk with my laptop and I planned. I made phone calls to people who owed me favors. I sent urgent emails with subject, extremely urgent. I called in every single favor I'd ever earned in my entire life. And slowly, piece by piece, like putting together the world's most satisfying puzzle, my plan came together. The next morning, I got up and got ready like nothing was wrong, like my world hadn't ended just hours ago. I put on my beautiful pale blue dress, the elegant, expensive dress I'd chosen months ago for my role as practically the mother of the bride. I did my makeup carefully, precisely, covering the dark circles under my eyes from not sleeping. I styled my hair perfectly. I put on my pearls and my best jewelry. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who was about to burn down everything and everyone who'd ever hurt her. And I smiled. I went to Sarah's suite for the pre-wedding preparations around noon. The room was absolutely full of people and chaos. Bridesmaids in various states of undress, hairstylists with their hot tools, makeup artists with their palettes and brushes, champagne bottles being opened, nervous excitement filling every corner. Sarah looked pale and terrified when she saw me walk in. She tried to pull me aside immediately, her eyes desperate. "Eve, we need to talk." But I just smiled brightly, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "No time for talking now, sweetie. It's your wedding day. We need to get you absolutely perfect." The other bridesmaids had no idea anything was wrong. They giggled and drank champagne and took selfies. They had no idea that the bride had been in bed with my husband just hours ago. They had no idea what was coming. I helped Sarah into her dress, honey. I zipped it up slowly, carefully, making sure every clasp was perfect. I adjusted her veil with gentle hands. I fastened her necklace, another expensive piece I had bought. The other bridesmaids kept saying how beautiful she looked, how lucky Derek was, how perfect everything was. And all I could think was, just wait. Just wait. "Eve," Sarah whispered desperately as I fastened her necklace. Her voice so quiet, only I could hear. "Please, what are you doing? What are you planning?" I leaned in close, my lips right next to her ear, and whispered back, "Making sure you have the perfect wedding day, sweetheart. Making sure everyone remembers this day for the rest of their lives. Isn't that what best friends are for?" I felt her shudder under my hands. The ceremony was set to begin at 5 in the evening. By 4:30, everyone was dressed in their absolute finest. Designer dresses, expensive suits, jewelry that probably cost more than most people's cars. They sat in neat rows, facing this elaborate floral arch that had cost more than some people's yearly salary, dripping with those Ecuadorian roses and orchids. The string quartet I'd hired was playing softly, beautifully. The weather was absolutely perfect. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. Everything was flawless. Everything was ready. I sat in the front row, right where I was supposed to be. Marcus was supposed to sit next to me, but I'd had his seat quietly removed earlier that morning. He stood awkwardly to the side when he arrived, looking confused and lost, until an usher finally found him a seat way in the back. Good. He could watch from the cheap seats. The music changed to signal the start of the ceremony. The wedding party began their procession down that white runner. Bridesmaids in beautiful lavender dresses, carrying smaller versions of Sarah's massive bouquet. Groomsmen in perfectly tailored gray suits walking with military precision. Everyone smiling, everyone happy, everyone thinking this was going to be the most beautiful wedding they'd ever seen. They had no idea. They had absolutely no idea. Then came Sarah, walking down that aisle on her stepfather's arm. She looked absolutely stunning. Honey, I have to give her that. That dress fit her perfectly, hugging every curve. Her veil flowed behind her like something from a fairy tale. Her bouquet was massive and gorgeous. She looked like every bride's dream. Derek stood at the altar, watching her approach, and there were actual tears streaming down his face. He thought he was the luckiest man in the world. Poor Derek. If only he knew. The ceremony began with all the traditional words. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and forever. About trust and loyalty and building a life together. I barely heard any of it. I was watching, waiting, my heart pounding in my chest, checking my watch, checking my phone discreetly. Almost time. Almost. We got through the vows. Derek said, "I do" with his whole heart, his voice strong and clear and full of love. Sarah said, "I do," while glancing nervously at me in the front row, her voice shaking slightly. Everyone probably thought she was just emotional. If only they knew she was terrified. If anyone objects to this union, the officiant began, starting those traditional words that are usually just a formality. Speak now or forever hold your peace. This is the moment in every wedding where everyone holds their breath for a second. But no one ever actually objects. It's just tradition, just words, just a formality. Except when it's not. I stood up slowly, smoothly, my pale blue dress rustling softly. A ripple of confusion went through the crowd immediately. People turning to look at me, whispering. Sarah's face went absolutely white, all the color draining out of it. Marcus half stood from his seat, way in the back, looking panicked, his face a mask of horror. "I object," I said clearly, my voice carrying across that perfect lawn, across those 400 guests, strong and unwavering. The officiant looked completely flustered, stammering. This is... Ma'am, perhaps we can discuss this privately." "No need for a private discussion," I said pleasantly, smiling like we were talking about the weather. "I just thought the guests should know exactly who they're celebrating today. Don't you think honesty is important at a wedding?" "Eve, please," Sarah's voice was shaking, begging. But I was done with her pleas. I pulled out my phone from my small clutch, holding it up. "You see, everyone, I've been best friends with Sarah for 30 years. 30 years of sleepovers and secrets and supporting each other. And I've been married to that man in the back." I pointed directly at Marcus, who looked like he wanted to disappear. For 17 years. 17 years of vows and promises and building a life together. The crowd was dead silent now, honey. You could have heard a pin drop. So when I found them in bed together last night, you can imagine my surprise. The gasps that erupted from that crowd? Oh, honey, it was like a wave. People clutching their pearls, hands flying to mouths, eyes going wide. Derek swayed on his feet like he'd been physically struck. His best man grabbed his arm to steady him. Marcus started pushing through the crowd toward me, but several guests blocked his way. "But wait," I continued, my voice getting louder, stronger. "It gets so much better, because this affair, it's been going on for 6 months. 6 whole months while I planned every single detail of this wedding. While I paid for everything you see here today." I gestured around at all of it. The flowers, every flower you see, I bought it. That dress she's wearing, I bought it. This venue, this orchestra, that cake over there, me. All of it. $300,000 so that my best friend could marry one man while sleeping with another. While sleeping with my husband. "That's enough," Marcus shouted, finally breaking through and reaching me. "Oh no, darling." I turned to him with that cold smile. "We're just getting started. You wanted to be part of this wedding? Well, congratulations. You're the star of the show." I pulled out a small remote control from my clutch. Earlier that morning, before anyone else arrived, I'd had a team of technicians set up a massive projection screen behind the altar. I'd told Sarah it was for displaying a beautiful photo montage during the reception, romantic pictures of the couple. She'd loved the idea, had practically squealed with joy. Poor stupid Sarah. I pressed the button. The screen lit up behind the altar, huge and bright and impossible to miss. And there, in high definition for all 400 guests to see, were text messages. Marcus and Sarah's text messages. Months and months of them, scrolling automatically. The crowd erupted in gasps and shouts, people pulling out their phones, recording everything, which was exactly what I wanted. I'd actually hired several professional videographers, disguised as regular guests, to make sure every single angle was covered. This needed to be documented, preserved, remembered. The messages scrolled across that screen, honey, and they were devastating. Explicit texts about what they wanted to do to each other. Plans to meet up at hotels. "Eve's working late tonight. Come to the Hilton." Discussions about how to hide their affair from me. "We need to be more careful. She almost saw us." Sarah complaining about Derek being boring in bed. "He's so vanilla, not like you." Marcus saying, "That one hurt, honey. That one cut deep," but I kept my face completely neutral. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. People in the audience were screaming now. Sarah's mother was wailing. Derek's father was shouting obscenities. Sarah tried to run toward me, but her enormous dress made it impossible. She stumbled and nearly fell. "Eve, stop this right now! Stop this!" she screamed. "Stop? But sweetheart, we're not done." I pressed another button on the remote. Now the screen showed photographs, honey. Real photographs that I'd gotten from the private investigator I'd hired 2 months ago. Marcus and Sarah at restaurants, holding hands across tables. At hotels, kissing in parking lots. In cars, parked in dark corners. Even in our home, when I'd been away visiting my sister. Sarah sitting on our couch, Marcus's arm around her. In our kitchen, feeding each other. In our bedroom doorway. Thankfully not inside, but close enough. My home, my space, defiled. Derek stood frozen at that altar, honey. Completely frozen, staring at those photos. His best man had his hand on Derek's shoulder, but Derek shrugged it off violently. He was staring at Sarah with an expression I'll never forget. Complete and utter devastation mixed with rage. "Sarah," he said quietly, but his voice carried in the terrible silence. "Is this true? Is any of this true?" She was crying hysterically now, honey. Mascara streaming down her face in black rivers, her perfect makeup completely ruined, her $12,000 dress covered in grass stains from where she'd stumbled. "Derek, please, I can explain everything. Please, just let me." "Is it true?" he roared, and I'd never heard quiet, polite Derek raise his voice before. She collapsed onto the grass in that expensive dress, sobbing uncontrollably, her whole body shaking. That was answer enough for everyone watching. That was the confession without words. Derek stared at her for one more long moment. Then he pulled off his boutonnière, that little white rose I'd carefully selected, and dropped it on the ground like it was trash. He walked past Sarah without another word, without even looking at her, past his shocked groomsmen, past his horrified family, past 400 witnesses. And he disappeared into the mansion, just gone. The groom had left his own wedding. The guests were in absolute chaos now, honey. People shouting, crying, recording everything on their phones. Sarah's mother was screaming at me, calling me horrible names. Marcus's brother was trying desperately to turn off the screen, but I'd made sure the controls were locked. Security was trying to figure out what to do, but I wasn't done yet. Not quite. "There's more," I announced loudly, and somehow my voice cut through all the chaos. Another image appeared on that massive screen. This one was a legal document, a prenuptial agreement I'd had drawn up years ago when Marcus wanted to start his real estate development business. According to this agreement, very clearly stated in legal language, infidelity meant he got nothing in the divorce. Zero, not one penny. The house, the cars, the business, all of our investments, everything would be mine. I'd insisted on this clause back then, and Marcus had signed it without much thought. He probably figured he'd never cheat. Or if he did, he'd never get caught. "Surprise, sweetheart. Just so everyone here knows," I said loudly, my voice carrying over the chaos. "My lawyers will be filing for divorce on Monday morning. First thing. Marcus, I hope she was worth it, because you're about to lose absolutely everything. Your home, your business, your reputation, everything you've built, gone." Marcus lunged at me then, pure rage on his face. But several male guests grabbed him, held him back. He was shouting, but I couldn't even hear him anymore. I was numb to it, numb to all of it. I looked around at the chaos I'd created. 400 witnesses to the complete destruction of 3 people's lives. The orchestra had stopped playing. The photographers had stopped taking romantic photos. Everyone was just staring, recording, watching the spectacular implosion. The most expensive wedding disaster in history. Finally, I turned to Sarah one last time. She was still on the ground, her beautiful dress ruined. Her perfect hair a mess, her makeup destroyed, her entire life falling apart. I walked over to her slowly, my heels clicking on the stone path. I leaned down so only she could hear me. "I hope you enjoyed your special day, Sarah," I whispered, "because this is the last thing I'll ever give you. This moment, this humiliation, this truth. Consider it my final wedding gift." I straightened up and looked at the crowd. Enjoy the reception, everyone. I've already paid for everything. The cake. It would be a shame to waste it. And then I walked away. Away from the screaming and crying and 400 witnesses. Away from my former best friend and my former husband. Away from everything I'd known for 30 years. I got in my car. I'd had my suitcase packed and ready in the truck that morning, and I drove away from that mansion, from that disaster, from that life. I never looked back, not once. The video went viral within hours, honey. Someone posted it online, and by the next morning, millions of people had seen it. The moment I destroyed Sarah's wedding became internet legend. I became known as Revenge Wedding Eve in various forums and social media platforms. Memes were made, articles were written, people debated endlessly whether what I did was justified or cruel. Some people called me a hero, said I was brave, said they wished they had my courage. Some called me cruel, vindictive, said I should have handled it privately. Honestly, I didn't care about either opinion. I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Quick and clean, relatively speaking. Marcus tried to fight it at first, hired an expensive lawyer, claimed the prenup was unfair. But the evidence was overwhelming, honey. The text messages, the photos, the testimony from the private investigator. Even his own lawyer eventually told him to just sign the papers. He lost everything, just like the prenup promised. The house? Mine. His business equity? Mine. The cars, the investments, the vacation home? All mine. He was left with basically nothing except the clothes on his back and his ruined reputation. Last I heard, he and Sarah tried to make a go of it. After all, they'd sacrificed everything for their so-called love, right? They'd lost marriages, friendships, reputations, money, everything. So surely their love must be real, must be worth it. It lasted 6 months. 6 months, the same amount of time they'd been having their affair. Turns out a relationship built entirely on betrayal and lies doesn't have a very strong foundation. Who knew? When the excitement wore off, when there were no more secret meetings and stolen moments, when it was just the two of them facing the consequences of what they'd done, the magic disappeared. Marcus wanted her to get a job to support them since he'd lost everything. Sarah resented him for ruining her life. They fought constantly. They blamed each other, and eventually it all fell apart. Sarah moved back in with her mother, last I heard. Marcus moved to another state, trying to rebuild his business and his life. I hope they both think of me sometimes. I hope they remember what they lost. I hope it was worth it. Derek, sweet Derek, sent me a letter about 3 weeks after the wedding. I almost didn't open it. I thought maybe it would be angry, blaming me for the public humiliation. But it wasn't. He thanked me. He said if I hadn't done what I did, he would have married Sarah not knowing the truth. He would have found out eventually, he said. Probably after they had kids and a mortgage and years invested. He said I saved him years of pain, years of living a lie. He said I gave him the truth when no one else would. We actually became friends in a weird way after that. Both survivors of Sarah's selfishness. Both people who learned the hard way that you can't always trust the people you love most. He's married now, actually, to a wonderful woman who deserves him. I was at their wedding, a small, intimate affair. Nothing like Sarah's spectacle. And watching him say "I do" to someone who truly loved him, who was honest with him, it actually made me happy. At least some good came from all of this. You know what the worst part is, honey? And I mean the absolute worst part of this entire nightmare. It's not the money. $300,000 is a lot, but I can make more money. I'm good at what I do. I'm smart with investments. The money will come back. It's not even Marcus, if I'm being completely honest with you. Our marriage had been dying slowly for years before Sarah came into the picture. I just hadn't wanted to admit it to myself. We'd grown apart, become roommates more than lovers. The passion had faded years ago. Sarah didn't steal a happy marriage. She just accelerated the end of a dying one. No, the worst part, the part that still makes my chest hurt when I think about it, is Sarah. I lost my best friend. Or rather, I lost the person I thought was my best friend. I lost 30 years of memories that are now tainted, poisoned, ruined. Every good memory I have with Sarah, and honey, there were so many beautiful memories, is now colored by the knowledge that she could betray me like this. That she could take my I think about our sleepovers as kids, staying up all night, giggling about boys. Was I just entertainment to her even then? I think about holding her hand at her father's funeral, letting her cry on my shoulder for hours. Did she even really need me? Or was I just convenient? I think about every birthday party, every holiday, every trip we took together. Were any of those moments real for her? Or was I always just the friend with money, the one who could pay for things? The safety net she could fall back on? Sometimes late at night, when I can't sleep, I wonder if she ever really cared about me at all. Or if I was just useful, a tool, an ATM with emotions and a beating heart. And that hurts more than anything Marcus did, honey. That hurts more than the money. That hurts more than the humiliation. Because you expect your spouse might leave you someday. Sad, but statistically common. But your best friend since childhood? Your sister in everything but blood? You never see that betrayal coming. I'm doing okay now, though. Better than okay, actually. I sold the big house. Too many memories of Marcus. Too many rooms. Too much space for just me. I bought a beautiful apartment in the city instead. Top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view that makes me feel like I'm on top of the world. I decorated it exactly how I wanted, with no one else's opinion mattering. Bold colors Marcus would have hated. Modern art Sarah would have called pretentious. It's mine. All mine. I started traveling, honey. Really traveling. Not just those boring business trips Marcus used to drag me on. I went to Thailand and took a cooking class. I went to Italy and drank wine in Tuscany. I went to Japan and stayed in a traditional ryokan. I'm planning a trip to New Zealand next month. All the places I'd always wanted to go, but never had the time or the freedom. I rekindled friendships I'd neglected over the years, while I was so focused on Sarah and Marcus. College friends I'd lost touch with. Work colleagues I'd kept at arm's length. My sister and I are closer now than we've been in years. Turns out, when you're not spending all your emotional energy on people who don't deserve it, you have so much more to give to people who do. And, honey, I even started dating again. Nothing serious yet. I'm taking it very, very slow. Once bitten, twice shy, as they say. But I've met some nice men, had some pleasant dinners. Some interesting conversations. Maybe someday I'll be ready to trust someone again completely. Maybe not. Either way, I'm okay with it. I'm learning that being alone is not the same as being lonely. You know what I learned through all of this, sweetheart? I learned that revenge doesn't actually make you feel better. Not really. That moment at the wedding, standing there in front of 400 people, pressing that button and watching everything explode into chaos, it didn't heal the hurt. It didn't undo the betrayal. It didn't erase the 6 months of lies or the 30 years of false friendship. It just added more pain to the world, more hurt, more humiliation, more destruction. But honey, I'd still do it again in a heartbeat, every single time, without hesitation. Because some betrayals are so complete, so absolute, so devastating, that they deserve to be exposed to the light. Because Derek deserved to know the truth before he legally bound himself to a liar and a cheat. Because sometimes burning everything down is the only way to clear the ground for something new to grow. Because suffering in silence would have destroyed me from the inside out. Would I have preferred if Sarah had just been honest? If she'd come to me and said, "Eve, I'm so sorry, but I have feelings for Marcus." If she'd ended our friendship before starting something with my husband? If she'd at least had the basic human decency not to do it the night before her wedding. A wedding I paid every penny for. Of course I would have preferred that. That would have been the kind, the moral, the right thing to do. But Sarah didn't give me that option, honey. She made her choices. She chose to lie, to cheat, to betray, to take everything I offered, and then take even more. So I made my choice too. I chose truth over silence. I chose exposure over discretion. I chose to make sure everyone knew exactly who they were celebrating. And I chose to make damn sure there were consequences. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. The public spectacle. The viral video. The fact that millions of strangers watched my life fall apart in real time. The humiliation of having my private pain become public entertainment. I tell them no. Honestly, truly, no. Because the alternative was suffering in silence while they got their fairy tale ending. The alternative was watching them smile and dance and cut that $3,000 cake while I knew the truth. The alternative was letting them teaching them that betrayal has no real consequences. The alternative was Derek marrying a woman who didn't love him, who would probably have continued the affair even after the wedding. Some people deserve the fairy tale ending, honey. Some people deserve the happily ever after. Sarah and Marcus were not those people. So yeah, sweetheart, that's my story. That's the whole messy, painful, dramatic truth of it. That's how I spent $300,000 and 17 years of marriage and 30 years of friendship to learn one very expensive lesson. The people you trust the most can hurt you the deepest. But also, and this is important, I learned that I'm so much stronger than I ever knew. I learned that I can survive betrayal. I learned that I can stand in front of 400 people and expose the truth, even when my hands are shaking and my heart is breaking. I learned that I don't need a man to define me. I learned that I don't need a best friend to complete me. I learned that I'm enough all by myself. These days, I'm careful about who I let into my life, into my heart. I don't give my trust freely anymore like I used to. I don't write blank checks, emotionally or financially. I don't ignore red flags or make excuses for people's bad behavior. I don't sacrifice my own well-being for people who wouldn't do the same for me. Some people would say that's sad, that Sarah and Marcus made me bitter and cynical, that they stole my ability to trust, my openness, my generosity. But honey, I prefer to think they made me wise. They taught me to value myself more. They taught me to recognize my own worth. They taught me that self-preservation isn't selfish, it's necessary. They taught me that some people will take and take and take until you have nothing left to give. And they taught me that it's okay to say no, to set boundaries, to protect yourself. And wisdom, unlike friendship and marriage, is something no one can ever take away from you. It's mine forever, earned through pain. Yes, expensive, absolutely, but mine. Now pour me some more of that wine, would you, honey? All this talking has made me absolutely parched. And remember this, sweetheart, because it's the most important thing I can tell you. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Don't make excuses for them. Don't rationalize their behavior. Don't give them second and third and fourth chances to hurt you. Just believe them and act accordingly. I wish I had learned that lesson 30 years ago. I wish I'd seen the signs earlier. Sarah's constant need for money, her pattern of using people, her lack of real reciprocity in our friendship. I wish I'd noticed when Marcus started pulling away, when his work trips became more frequent, when he stopped really seeing me. But I didn't see it because I didn't want to see it. I wanted to believe in the friendship, in the marriage, in the fairy tale. And that willful blindness cost me $300,000 and years of my life. But at least I made sure everyone at that wedding believed their eyes. At least I made sure the truth came out. At least Derek didn't marry a lie. At least I didn't suffer in silence. At least I stood up for myself, even if it was messy and public and dramatic. So that's it, honey. That's the whole story of the most expensive wedding I ever paid for. The wedding that destroyed 3 lives, but maybe saved 1. The wedding that went viral and made me infamous. The wedding I'll never, ever forget. And you know what? I sleep just fine at night. My conscience is clear. Because I may have burned everything down, but at least I burned it with the truth. And sometimes, honey, that's all you can do. Sometimes the only way out is through the fire. And if you're going to burn it all down anyway, you might as well make sure everyone sees exactly what you're burning and why. Now, enough about my drama. Tell me what's going on in your life, sweetheart. I've been talking for hours and monopolizing the whole conversation. That's terribly rude of me. But thank you for listening. Thank you for not judging. Thank you for being here, being real, being honest. That's what real friends do. And after everything I've been through, I finally know the difference between real friends and false ones. Cheers to that, honey. Cheers to truth and wisdom and survival. And cheers to never, ever letting anyone make you feel small again. You know, there's more to this story that I haven't told many people. The aftermath, honey. The real aftermath. Because destroying someone's wedding in front of 400 people doesn't just end when you drive away. It ripples out like dropping a boulder in a pond. And those ripples? They touched Eve. The hotel called me 3 days later. Apparently, after I left, the reception turned into absolute chaos. Some guests actually stayed and ate the food and drank the champagne. Was not, want not, I suppose. But others left immediately, horrified and scandalized. Sarah's family was screaming at Marcus's family. The vendors didn't know what to do. The band played for an empty room. And that $3,000 cake? Someone smashed it during a fight. Literally took that beautiful 7-tier masterpiece and destroyed it. Seems fitting, doesn't it? The hotel manager wanted to know if I'd pay for the damages. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud on the phone. I paid for a wedding reception, I told him calmly. What the guests chose to do with it is not my responsibility. Send the bill to the bride and groom. He tried to argue, but I'd already paid everything I'd contracted to pay. The destruction that followed wasn't my problem anymore. Sarah tried to contact me, of course. Dozens of calls in those first few weeks. Text messages that started apologetic and slowly became angry. Then desperate, then bitter. I blocked her number after the first day. But she tried from other phones, from email, even sent letters to my new apartment. I returned them all unopened. One of her letters I accidentally opened before I realized what it was. I only read the first paragraph before I threw it away. But I still remember what it said. Eve, you destroyed my life. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know. You're a cruel, vindictive person, and I never want to see you again. The irony, honey, the absolute irony of her calling me cruel, as if what she'd done to me was somehow less cruel because it was private. As if betrayal hurts less when it's a secret. Marcus tried to contact me too, but only about the divorce and the assets. His lawyer kept trying to negotiate, to find some loophole in the prenup. They argued that I'd entrapped him, that the prenup was signed under duress. My lawyer laughed at them, literally laughed during a deposition. There was no duress. Marcus had signed it willingly, even eagerly, because back then he never thought he'd cheat. Back then he thought he loved me. Or maybe he never did. I'll never really know. The tabloids tried to interview me. Yes, tabloids. Actual tabloids. The story was that big, that viral, that scandalous. Scorned woman's $300K revenge, read one headline. Wedding crasher exposes cheating groom and bride, read another. They offered me money for an exclusive interview. Some offered a lot of money. I turned them all down. I didn't do it for fame or attention. I did it for justice, for truth, for Derek, and yes, for revenge, but not for their entertainment. My family was divided on what I'd done. My sister understood completely. She'd never liked Marcus anyway. Said he always seemed fake to her. My father, before he passed away a year later, told me he was proud of me for standing up for myself. But some cousins, some aunts and uncles, they thought I'd gone too far. You should have handled it privately, they said. You embarrassed the whole family, they said. What will people think, they said. I told them I didn't care what people thought. I'd spent 30 years caring what Sarah thought. 17 years caring what Marcus thought. And where had that gotten me? Betrayed and alone and humiliated in private. At least now, the humiliation was shared equally. At least now, Everyone knew the truth. Work was interesting in the aftermath. I'm a financial consultant, and some of my clients were worried. Would I be stable? Would I be professional? Could they trust someone who just very publicly imploded their own life? But then, something unexpected happened. My client list started growing. Women, mostly. Successful women who'd been through their own betrayals. They sought me out specifically because of what I'd done. They respected the fact that I hadn't just rolled over and taken it, that I'd fought back, even if it was messy. You did what we all wish we'd had the courage to do, one client told me. And my business actually thrived. Turned out, refusing to be a victim was good for my professional reputation. Who knew? I started going to therapy about 3 months after the wedding. Not because I felt guilty. I want to be very clear about that. But because I realized I had 30 years of friendship to grieve. And that grief was real, honey. As real as grieving a death. Because in a way, Sarah did die that night. The Sarah I thought I knew, the Sarah I loved, she never really existed. She was a fiction I'd created in my head. The real she never once judged what I'd done at the wedding. Instead, she helped me understand why I'd done it. You needed to reclaim your power, she said. They took everything from you. Your trust, your money, your relationships. The wedding was you taking back control. And she was right. For 6 months, I'd been powerless without knowing it. They'd had all the power, all the secrets, all the control. That moment at the wedding, that was me taking it all back. That was me refusing to be the victim of their story. She also helped me understand my pattern with Sarah. How I'd always been the giver in our friendship. How Sarah had always been the taker. How that imbalance had been there from the very beginning, even as children. I just hadn't wanted to see it. You conflated generosity with love, my therapist said. You thought if you gave enough, she'd love you the way you loved her. But love doesn't work like that. Real love is reciprocal. Real friendship is balanced. And what Sarah and I had, that wasn't friendship. That was dependency on her part and codependency on mine. I started journaling as part of therapy, writing down memories with Sarah and examining them honestly. And honey, once I took off the rose-colored glasses, the patterns were so obvious. The time in high school when she borrowed my car and returned it on empty, then got mad at me for being upset. The time in college when she slept with a guy I'd been dating, then said I was overreacting. The countless times she'd borrowed money and forgotten to pay it back. The way she'd always need me most when I was dealing with my own problems. The way my good news was always overshadowed by her crisis. How had I not seen it? How had I excused it all away for 30 years? Because I wanted to believe in the friendship. Because I didn't want to be alone. Because having a best friend since childhood felt special, felt important, felt like something worth protecting at any cost. Even when the cost was my own dignity. About 6 months after the wedding, I ran into one of Sarah's bridesmaids at a coffee shop, Jennifer. We'd been friendly at all the wedding events. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, like he wanted to run, but I walked up to her anyway. "Hi, Jennifer," I said calmly. "How are you?" She stuttered, clearly not expecting me to be kind. I'm good. Eve, I'm so sorry about everything." "Don't be sorry," I interrupted. "Did you know?" About Marcus and Sarah. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Not until a week before the wedding. Sarah told me one night when she was drunk. She swore me to secrecy. I didn't know what to do. I almost told you a dozen times, but she was your friend too, I finished for her. I'm so sorry, she said again, tears in her eyes. I should have told you. What she did was unforgivable. Yes, it was, I agreed. But thank you for telling me now. She took a breath. For what it's worth, Sarah's miserable. She lost everything. Derek, obviously. Her job. They fired her because the video made them look bad. Most of her friends won't talk to her. Her family barely speaks to her. She's living with her mother and working retail. I waited to feel satisfaction at hearing that. I waited to feel vindicated. But all I felt was empty. I hope she figures her life out eventually, I said, and I meant it. Because holding on to anger forever would only poison me. Sarah had already taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let her take my peace too. Derek and I met for coffee about 8 months after the wedding. He looked good, honey, healthy, lighter somehow. I wanted to thank you again, he said, properly this time, not just in a letter. You don't have to thank me, I told him. I was saving myself, not you. Maybe, he smiled. But you saved me too. I realized I'd ignored red flags with Sarah. She was never fully present with me. Always distracted, always distant. I just thought that's how she was. I didn't know she was having an affair. But somewhere deep down, I knew something was off. We see what we want to see, I said softly. Exactly. And I wanted to see a woman who loved me. So I ignored everything that said otherwise. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. I met someone, he said finally, a shy smile crossing his face. Yeah? Her name is Rachel. She's a teacher. Kind, honest, real. The opposite of Sarah in every way. I'm happy for you, Derek. Truly. Thank you, Eve, for the truth, for the closure, for giving me a chance at a real relationship. And watching him walk away that day, happy and healed, I felt like maybe something good had come from all the destruction. Maybe the fire had cleared space for new growth after all. I went on my first real date about 10 months after the wedding. I donated money to a women's shelter. A lot of money. Almost as much as I'd spent on Sarah's wedding. His name was James. A colleague had set us up. He was nice, attractive, successful. Everything you're supposed to want. But halfway through dinner, I realized I was analyzing everything he said, looking for red flags, waiting for him to betray me somehow. I cut the date short and went home, and I cried, honey. I cried because I realized Sarah and Marcus had broken something in me. They'd taken my ability to trust, my openness, my willingness to be vulnerable, and I was so angry at them for that. But I kept trying. I went on more dates, some good, some bad, some mediocre. I'm still not in a serious relationship, and that's okay. Maybe I will be someday. Maybe I won't. Either way, I'm learning that my worth isn't tied to having a partner. That I'm complete all by myself. That being alone is not the same as being lonely. I did something radical about a year after the wedding. Because I realized there were women out there who were trapped in terrible situations. who were being betrayed and abused and had no resources to escape. If I could help them leave, help them start over, then maybe something good could come from my pain. The shelter director cried when I handed her the check. "Do you know how many women you just helped?" she asked. And honey, for the first time since the wedding, I felt truly good. Not vindicated, not justified. Therapy, but genuinely good. Like I'd turned my pain into purpose. Like I'd transformed destruction into creation. I think about Sarah sometimes still. Usually late at night when I can't sleep. I wonder if she ever thinks about me. If she ever regrets what she did. If she understands the magnitude of what she destroyed. I wonder if she tells herself a different story, where she's the victim somehow, where I'm the villain who overreacted. People are good at rewriting history to make themselves the hero. My present is choosing myself every single day, and my future is whatever I decide to make it. I wonder if she and Marcus ever talk about me, if they blame me for their relationship failing, as if I was the problem and not their betrayal, as if exposing the truth was worse than the lie itself. But mostly, I just feel neutral about them now, not angry anymore, not hurt anymore, just indifferent. They're people I used to know who made terrible choices. They're cautionary tales I tell myself when I'm tempted to ignore red flags. They're lessons I learned the expensive way. But they're not my present, and they're definitely not my future. My present is my beautiful apartment with its view of the city. My present is traveling to places I've always wanted to see. My present not limited by a toxic friendship, not defined by a failed marriage, not trapped by other people's expectations, just mine. All mine, open and full of possibility. You know what's funny, honey? People always ask me if I regret how public I made it, if I wish I'd handled it differently, more quietly, more maturely. And my answer is always the same. No, not for a single second, because handling it quietly would have meant protecting them. Letting them have their perfect wedding day while I suffered in silence. Letting Derek marry a lie. Letting 400 people celebrate a union built on betrayal. Letting Sarah and Marcus face no real consequences for their actions. And why should I have protected them? Why do women always have to be quiet about their pain? Why do we have to suffer gracefully and privately while the people who hurt us get to move on with their lives? Why is exposing the truth considered worse than the betrayal itself? Society wants us to be victims silently, to handle our pain with dignity and discretion, to protect the reputations of people who destroyed us, to make things comfortable for everyone else. Well, I chose not to do that. I chose to make it uncomfortable. I chose to tell the truth loudly. I chose to let everyone see exactly who they were celebrating. And I'd make that choice again every single time. Because here's what I learned. Honey, your pain is valid, even if it's inconvenient for other people. Your truth matters, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Your healing is more important than other people's comfort. And you don't owe silence to people who hurt you. I spent 30 years protecting Sarah from consequences, 17 years protecting Marcus's ego. And where did it get me? It got me taken advantage of. It got me betrayed. It got me lied to for 6 months while I planned and paid for a wedding. So no, I don't regret the public exposure. I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it. I regret ignoring red flags for decades. I regret not valuing myself enough to set boundaries earlier. But the wedding, the exposure, the viral video, that I don't regret at all. That was me finally standing up for myself. That was me saying my pain matters. That was me refusing to protect people who'd hurt me. That was me choosing truth over comfort. And honey, that's something I'll never regret. So when people ask me for advice now, and they do, surprisingly often, I tell them this: trust your gut. When something feels off, it probably is. Don't ignore red flags because you want to believe in someone. Don't excuse betrayal because confrontation is uncomfortable. Don't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. And don't suffer in silence to protect people who hurt you. Your story matters. Your truth matters. You matter. And if telling your truth makes other people uncomfortable, that's their problem. No. I'm 57 years old now, honey. And for the first time in my life, I'm truly free. Free from toxic friendships. Free from a loveless marriage. Free from people who took without giving. Free from the need to be liked by people who don't deserve me. And that freedom, it's priceless. Worth every penny of that $300,000. Worth the viral video and the tabloid stories. Worth the judgment and the criticism. Worth all of it. Because I bought my freedom at that wedding. I bought my truth. I bought my self-respect. And those things, you can't put a price on them. So yes, I paid for my best friend's $300,000 wedding. And then I burned it down when I found out she'd slept with my husband. And I'd do it again. Because some betrayals deserve to be exposed. Some lies need to be brought into the light. And some weddings need to be destroyed. Now, honey, let's talk about something happier. Let's talk about your life, your dreams, yo. Because I've been monopolizing this entire conversation with my drama. And you've been such a good friend, listening to all of this without judgment. That's what real friends do. They listen. They support. They show up. They don't betray you and then act like you're the villain for being hurt. And after everything I've been through, I finally know what real friendship looks like. It looks like this. Like sitting together, sharing stories, being honest, being real. Like mutual respect and reciprocal care. Like showing up for each other without keeping score. So thank you, sweetheart. Thank you for listening. Thank you for not judging. Thank you for being here. And remember what I told you. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Don't wait for the wedding disaster. Don't wait for the public humiliation. Don't wait for the viral video. Just believe them and act accordingly. Your future self will thank you. Trust me on that one, honey.